All right, so now we are moving on to chapter 7.2, which is talking about budgeting. And we won't spend a lot of time on this. Then we're going to move on to banking and finance. I just want to go over the basics of budgeting because you will have a consumer education project to do, like with um, percents, budget, banking, right? So I'm trying to cover like the basics. As I told you guys before, I don't want to just give you book problems for these. This project, as soon as we cover enough, you'll have a real life research kind of project to carry out. Now, when they talk about budgeting, and this budgeting we're talking about is personal budgeting, the personal aspect of it, like for yourself, for your home, that kind of thing, right? A personal budgeting. You do have other types of budgeting. You have, like, for example, you'll have like the fiscal budget that a country will have, your finance minister or whoever is in charge of finance of the country, whether the US or whichever country you're talking about, they have to have a budget in place as to do some forecasting as to how much they're expected to get in income from taxes and other revenues, like from exporting goods to other countries, that sort of thing. And they also have to look at their expenses. They have federal workers to pay and a bunch of other stuff to do. And so you have to have a budget in place. But we're not going to look at all of that. At this level, we're just going to look at personal budgeting for your own benefit, right? In the home. So when I talk about a budget, what do you think we're talking about here? Let's put a definition in place. So budgeting is the process of deciding how much money you can spend on various expenses, right? On various expenses based on your income, right? So based on your income. So first of all, we need to also talk a little bit about income, which I won't go in depth with because I think it's self-explanatory. When I talk about an income, so when you work, you're being paid a salary, right? Or some people may have other sources of income. It could be like from an estate, or it could be from um like if you're a minor, it could be what your parents give you as allowance. Your income may vary based on what you do. But for the majority of people, their income comes from the money that they earn from work. So when you work, so for example, when somebody work, you're gonna have what we call the gross pay, so that's before they deduct taxes and all that stuff. And then after they take out all of that, you're going to have what we call the net income or the take-home pay. Now, when you're doing your budgeting, the take-home pay is what you should budget from, the money that you have in hand. Agree? Right, because you have to budget from what you have. So pretty much when you do a budget, all you're going to look at is, so this is the basics of a budget. Let me just give a basic outline. So when you're doing your project, you have an idea. So this is the basic outline of a project. Not a project, a budget. Outline. So first of all, you want to look at your income or your take-home pay, right? You're going to look at your income, right? So you start with your income. And let's say, so you're going to have different sources of income, right? So you're going to add all the different sources of income. So let's say that is, I'm just gonna call that XXX dollars, just generally. So if you have more than one income, you add them up. Then what we're going to do now, you're going to less your expenses. Less LESS mean you're going to subtract them, right? So less your expenses. What are some of the things that you're going to have as expenses? Now, let's put some example in place. Right, you're going to have stuff like your rent. Right, rent may be a certain amount. You may have like your electric bill. So I'm just going to say bills in general. Bills will be a certain amount. You may have like car payment, all those kind of stuff. I'll just put etc. Right? Or miscellaneous. And so basically what you're going to do, you're going to add all of these. And then add that to your income column. All right, so let me put it like that. So I add all of these to get your total expenses. Let me put the total over here. And then they're going to subtract your total expenses now from your total income. And this right here is going to be the balance that you have remaining. And your balance could either be negative or positive. If it's negative, it means that you're spending more than what you're earning, which is not good. Maybe having some overdrafts there. All right, so that's the basics of doing a budget, right? It's not complicated. You will have to do one throughout the course. We're going to look at one. So you just start with your income, then you add up all your expenses, compute all of those, and subtract it from the income, and then you get the balance, right? And the aim is so your objective or your aim is to ensure that your income is greater than your expenses to ensure that you have a positive balance, right? So that's the aim that you're trying to get towards. You want to ensure that it has a positive balance. Now we're going to look at an example. Let's go to 7.2 in your textbook. We're going to look at try this one, number 3. So let's do an example based on this person's situation. So we're going to try this one, number 3. Seven point two, try this one, number 3. And I think it may be page 373 in your book, or
372, is it the preparing a budget?
yes. Look for the one that say try this one, and it's number 3.
Budget 20.
That's true. Go to number 3. This one right here. So it's page 373.
Okay.
Right? So you're gonna do the one on page 373. So we're given a scenario and they want us to create a budget from this scenario. So it's gonna be quite similar to what you're gonna do for your project with your own personal, situation. So we have Leslie shares an apartment with two friends, and the rent and utilities are split equally by all three tenants. So whatever the rent and bills are, they're going to share it equally. Find the amount left for the various for the variable expenses and luxuries if her monthly income is $1,556.27, and then they gave us our expenses, right? So first of all, with the budget, so we're doing a budget for what's her name? Leslie? Yeah. And then you could put the time on it, whether it's, January budget, February, it doesn't matter. They didn't say, but for your personal budget, you can. All right, so first of all, we're going to start with income. You always want to start with your income. So what I'm going to put here, I'm going to put stuff like details. And then I'm going to have two columns over here. Because sometimes you may need a column for extra computation. So I'll just use two columns. And I'm just going to say amount. And I'm just going to leave this column here for in case we need computations. All right. All right. So I guess I can just put some calculation. I put this as a calculation column if we need it. We may not need it. We may need it. All right. So let's work on Leslie's budget. All right. So first of all, we're going to start with Leslie's income. What's her income?
$1,556.
All right. So I'm going to put here $1,556.27. And then now we're going to list our expenses. So this is where this column comes into play, where we may need to list several expenses. What are the different expenses that she has?
Cell phone, utilities, insurance, and general.
All right, so let's do them in order so we don't miss anything. I'm going to start with rent. What's going to be her rent?
1,100.
But remember that the rent is split between three people, right?
That's 366.67.
Yes. So when you're doing her rent, you'd have to divide that by 3. So that's good. So her rent would have been $366.67. Good. Now let's talk about transportation. What's her transportation cost? $88. It's probably for the entire month. What else do we have for her? Cell phone.
And that's $91.50.
Yep, $91.50. And then we have utilities.
$327.
But the question said she shared rent and utilities with two other friends. So her share would be $327. Divide that by 3.
$109.
$109 would be her utilities. Good. So look out for those when you get these scenarios. Insurance. What's our insurance?
$48.20.
All right.
Oh, there's more than insurance.
And her gym membership.
$38.95.
Okay, she's a gym girl. So go ahead and add up all the expenses. We're adding all of these.
$742.32.
What the total?
$742.32.
All right, so put that over here. 700, repeat that again. Sorry, repeat that. 32 cents. Okay. So now we're gonna subtract this here. To get her balance. Subtract this here now from here. Her income.
I got negative $813.90.
No, you're taking this from this.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a negative because the income is bigger. So you're gonna have this first and then minus this here. Yeah.
See.
What did you say again for your figure? I got 813.95, right? And it's a positive balance. But the income is bigger. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's how you would do her budget. Mm-hmm.
So she has like a whiteboard and she would have all her like what she makes, and then she'd write down, okay, this is what's due this month,
Right.
and she'd write it all down, how much it costed, and then she'd add it all up and, stuff like that, what it would cost her, and if she'd have enough to cover it for that month,
Oh, I see. Oh.
and it looked like that,
Mm-hmm.
so. she got hers.
Got you. All right, so now we are going to look at banking and finance, simple interest. So let's look now at simple interest. All right, so simple interest is usually computed on a principal amount that you either borrow or you invest, or deposit into a bank account. Now, there are different types of interest. We can do simple or compound interest. What we're going to start off with is simple interest, all right? So your simple interest, and I'm not going to give lots of notes on these, is just to cover the basics that you will have enough knowledge to do your project. You can read further on the chapter in the book, because all the information is there if you need like more defined formulas. So the simple interest is always equal to your principal times rate times the time. All right, so the principal times the rate times the time. Do you know what the principal means?
Yeah.
So this is the amount deposited or borrowed if it's a loan. Let me write that out. So the principal is the amount of money borrowed or placed into a savings account. Let me list them out down here. It probably should be easier. So the principal, we normally denote it as P, is the amount of money deposited or borrowed, right? And then the rate now is the percent of the principal paid for having the money or loan. All right. The percent of the principal paid for a loan or earned for a investment. This would be like the deposit, right? And then we have the time. And I think this is self-explanatory. The length of time the money is either borrowed or invested. So this is the length. Right? Length of time the money is borrowed or invested. And bear in mind that time is in years, right? So even if they give it to months or days, convert it to years. And then another term you need to know is what we call the future value. We normally denote that as A. Rate is time, is denoted R, time is denoted T. Now the future value is the amount of the loan or investment plus the interest paid or earned. So if you borrow 500 and the interest is $50, then the future value would be $550, the amount you have at the end. And this is a formula for your simple interest. Remember, we say that the simple interest is always equal to the principal times the rate times the time. That's how you calculate the simple interest. The principal times the rate times the time. Now, we can transpose this for whichever one we want. But let's say they give you the interest and you want to find the time. How do you think we could find the time if we're given the interest? All right, so we say that simple interest, right, is equal to, let me take out the dot out of this. You don't think I'm saying multiplying S by I. All right, the simple interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. Now, what if we want to find time? You could divide by the principal times the rate on both sides. Yeah, it's algebra. If you're multiplying, you could just divide. And so that cancels. And so we see that time would be the same thing as the simple interest over the principal times the rate. That's how you could find time. Now, what if we want to find rate? What about the rate? How could we find the rate? Take your time.
Principal times, time, but divided by simple interest.
No, it's always a simple interest. Because start with this. Remember that the simple interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. Now, what do we want to find now? Rate. So that means we need to divide by principal and the time to cancel them out. Yeah. So P would cancel P, T would cancel T. And so we see that the rate would be the simple interest over principal times time. So that's how you can find those. And then one last one. How would we find the principal?
Would you just do the same thing?
Same thing. So the principal would be the simple interest divided by, what's the other two?
Rate and time.
Rate times time. Very good. Because sometimes you don't know what the question is going to ask you to find, but you can always manipulate it to find whatever you want to find. There's one thing I need to tell you before we move on, in case you come across it. Now, generally, this is what we use. We use 1 month is equal to 1/12 as a year. So bear these in mind because time must be in years, okay? Or year. Now, 1 week. What's 1 week in terms of year? How many weeks are in a year? 52. So 1 week could be 1/52 as a year, roughly speaking. These are general rules. Generally speaking. Of course, you know that some month may have a little over 4 weeks. You may have like 4 weeks and maybe 3 days, 2 days, you know, right? So it's, you know, but this is what we use for computation purposes. No. Usually, we use also that 1 year is equal to 365 days. We generally use this for computation purposes, right? However, there's a term called Banker's rule. So if you're told to use the Banker's rule, right? If you're to use the Banker's rule, then they use 360 days to equal to 1 year. So bear that in mind if you're asked to use the Banker's rule. Right. They use 360 days instead. So the bank is trying to short you 5 days.
6 if it's leap year.
Yeah, that's correct. So we can now do a problem. All right, so I think that's it. That's most of what we need for simple interest. So let's do a problem. So we get an idea what simple interest is talking about. Here is one. All right, so let's go to page 378 in your textbook. Page 378, do you have that? And it's the one that says, try this one for.
So we get restaurant took.
Yes. Is that the page that you're on?
Yes.
Is it okay? In my book, it's 380. Depends on the book, the version of the book that you have. So I think for you guys, it's 378. We're gonna do the one that says try this one for. All right, try this one, 4. So let's take a minute to read the question. So we have a restaurant, right? And we're told that the loan is $5,000. Interest rate is what? 6.5%.
Yeah.
And the term of the loan was 3 years. They want us to find some stuff. So A, we're going to find the interest. That's the first thing. What's the formula again for the interest? Simple interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. Very good. What's your principal? 5,000. What's the rate?
6%. Or is that gonna be the 3 years?
No, the rate is the percentage.
Okay, so it's the 6.5%?
Right. So you know that 6.5% means that you're dividing 6.5 by 100. And then what's the time? 3 years, right? Times time. And then work that out and tell me what you get. So remember that percentage, if you're dividing it by 100 to get it as a decimal or as a fraction, right? So work that out and tell me what you get.
No, because that would be 65%.
0.065.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me know what you get for the interest when you work it out. Yes, 975. So that's the interest, right? That would have been generated on that loan. Now for part B, they want you to find, there are several parts to the question. For part B, they want you to find the future value, meaning the total that you would end up paying at the end, right? How do you think we would find the future value here? If you know the loan amount and you know the interest, what would be the total? What would you do with them?
To add them?
Add them. So the future value is going to equal to the principal plus the interest. So that would mean the total, because you have to pay the interest as well. So that's 5,000 plus the 975. What does that give us? 5,975. Very good. So that's your future value. Very good. And then lastly, they want you to calculate the monthly payment. So this is part C, calculate the monthly payment. Oh yeah, that's perfectly fine. So here you can put this as a decimal, the percentage as a decimal instead of a fraction. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. All right, so what's going to be the monthly payments? What you're going to do is take the total and divide it up into equal monthly payments for the 3 years. So it's going to equal to the total, right? So it's going to equal to the future value, which is the total amount, divided by the number of payments. Now, how many months are in 3 years?
Um,
That's going to be 3 times 12, right? Which is 36. Yeah. So divide that by 36 and tell me what you get.
about $165.
How many cents?
90.
97 cents, yeah. Right. So that's the monthly payment that you would have to pay. Right?
So what if you wanted to, let's say you knew what after you budgeted, that you have enough money to make a bigger payment?
You can. You can. And actually, so most banks nowadays, when they give you a loan, they don't just charge you a flat out fee like this. What they tend to do is to charge you on the reducing balance, right? On the reducing balance. And that is why the longer you take to pay off the loan, the more money you end up paying because they charge you on the reducing balance. So if you make big payments, or like what we call a balloon payment, what it does, it's going to decrease your interest because you're lowering your principal by doing that. Yes. So making bigger payments will be beneficial in those cases. In a simple interest case, what they're doing just charging you a flat out fee, right? So whether you make a bigger payment or not, it wouldn't make much of an impact. So because you still have to pay this amount in interest, the 975. So whether you pay one time or whatever, then it wouldn't really matter. But as I said, most loans in general will charge you on the balance, the reducing balance, so it will benefit you more.
Rate isn't making you pay more because
Right,
pay longer.
right. That's correct. That's correct. So that's basically it for simple interest. There's one thing I want to look at though before we move on, and it is called what it's called a discounted loan, just in case you come across that term. I'm going to tell you what a discounted loan is. All right, so a discounted loan is one in which the interest is paid upfront by deducting the amount of interest from the amount the bank gives you. All right.
Does that say a discounted loan is one or in?
Is one.
Is one. Okay.
Now, the interest that is deducted from this amount is called the discount. So it's not really a discount, just that you're paying it upfront from the amount.
Mhm.
So instead of you get, so we're gonna do an example, but let's say you borrow some money, like in the case that we had before. So look at this one here. I'm gonna go back to the problem soon. If this was a discounted loan, so you're borrowing 5,000, right? You would not get 5,000. What the bank would do is take out the 975, and you would end up with what? 400, sorry, 4,025. Yeah, 4,025. So that's what you would get in hand. So they would take their interest upfront.
Hmm.
So that's what they mean by a discounted loan.
It makes it seem discount.
But it's not. No, you're still paying for it.
Yeah, still paying for it.
All right. So what all they were doing, instead of stretching out the interest over time, they would take back their interest upfront, and then you just pay your regular monthly payment, right? So that's what they call a discounted loan. Right. So all you will get is the amount after the discount, after the interest. But you still got to pay the interest, right? So, hey, yeah, it doesn't change your future value.
Nope, and you can even make it more if you're just like, oh, I have
Right.
less to pay. So you're like, oh, I'm gonna either spread it out or I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
pay a little less. And
Right.
it's just how some people look at it. Can I go back to the discounted loan?
Oh, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's really a deceptive practice when you think about it. And sometimes when you do that, you may end up even paying more.
Mhm.
Because you know what they do? I'm gonna come back here. What they do is after they take out what they call the discount,
Mhm.
you still have this interest to pay, right? And then they're gonna charge you a certain rate on the balance that you're actually getting the discounted amount. I mean the amount after the discount has been deducted. And so sometimes it may be quoted at like maybe 6.5%. And then by the end of all of it, you may probably pay 8% without even realizing. So it's sometimes it can be very deceptive the way how they do it.
Yeah.
Yep. I've never really seen this yet in like I haven't gone to a bank and they've offered me a discounted loan. I've never really seen it before, to be honest, because I wouldn't take it anyway.
I know, it's like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. But it's good to be aware though. It's good to be aware. So let's do an example that's on let's do example 9 on page 381. Yes. So example 9 on page 381. And this will be our last example. And then next class, we will pick up now with compound interest. So we're getting there. So in this case, what do we have now? A student obtain a 2-year loan. All right, so we have a 2-year loan. So that's the time. And what's the amount? 4,000.
Rate is
Interest rate
9%.
9%, right? And they say it's a discounted loan, right? Yeah, it did say that. So let's look at what this looks like. So first of all, they want you to find the discount. Remember that the discount is actually going to be the interest. So it's the same thing, right? So that's the interest they're asking you to find, which is the principal times the rate times the time, which is going to be your 4,000 times rate. 9 means 0.09 or 9 over 100, and time is 2 years. Do that and tell me what you get for the interest, which is the same as the discount.
$720.
720?
Yes.
Okay, yep. So 720. So that is the discount, right? And then part B now, they want you to calculate the amount all right. Calculate the amount. What happened here? Let me see what the question said here. Calculate the amount the student received. The student received. So in doing this, all you have to do now is to take the amount. So it's going to be the 4,000. And then you're going to minus, because you're discounting the loan with the interest,
The 720.
the 720, and then see what remains. So you're paying the interest up front, basically, out of the loan. How much is left? 3,280.
Yes.
Yes. So that's the amount that you're going to get in hand because they're taking their loan out upfront. All right. Now, remember they were quoted at 9%, right? You remember? And remember that this is the amount that you're getting, not the 4,000, right? 'Cause if you are taking the 4,000 on a regular rate, you'll end up be paying 720 in interest rate overall, which is pretty much the 9%. Now let's look at something here. Let's look at part C, which is asking to calculate the true interest rate. Calculate the true interest rate. Meaning, let's say you had gone to the bank to borrow 3,280. Right. So remember that simple interest. Which we know is what? What did our interest work out to be?
720.
Yes, so interest, remember that interest is equal to principal times rate times time. But we know what the interest is. We found out already. What is it? Plug it in, 720. What is the principal?
The,
No, it wouldn't, because we're finding the true rate now. So we're using this amount here.
oh, okay, the.
Right. So we're going to use 3280. Are we looking at the true amount? Because remember that they say that it is discounted. You're not getting 4,000 from the loan. You're getting 3,280. So we want to look at the true rate. We don't know the rate. I'm going to leave that as R. And what's the time? 2 years. Right. So if we want R, we're going to divide by 320. We're going to divide both sides by 320 times 2 on both sides. So that would cancel the 320, the 2 cancel the 2. So the rate would equal to what? 720 divided by, that would be what, 640?
I think it's the 320.
No, it's not 320, it's 3,280. My bad, I left something off. 3,280. I left off my 8.
Okay.
Yes. 3,280. Yeah. That should be 3,280. Yeah. All right. So rate would be 720 divided by this figure here. Let me know what you get. I got 0.1098 if I should round off. So that's approximately if we round off 1 to 10.98%. Let me know if you get this figure here.
Yes.
You got this?
Mhm.
Right. So technically, if you had gone to the bank to borrow 3,280, and for it to generate an interest of 720, look, that's the rate that you're actually getting the money at. So it's very deceptive. And that's what Part D is asking you, if it is deceptive or not. Yes, very deceptive. So you have to be careful, because a 4,000 loan would have been 9%.
Mhm.
So you're getting more in hand.
Rather take
The 4,000, right. It works out better, yeah. So you have to be very, very careful of these deceptive practices. Do you see that? So even though they might say to you, oh, we're giving you a discount, you're gonna pay all the loan up, the interest up front. No, you're not benefiting.
Yeah. If you knew that this was happening,
Right.
right? But you still wanted to do it and you pay it like you would, it wasn't a discounted loan, would that work? So like if you got your 3,280, right? But you're like, I'm still gonna pay it as if you were paying the 4,000. Would it still end up making you pay the 10%?
Pretty much, yes,
Pretty much.
because this is the interest that they're still working with regardless. Yes, so it would still, you would still be on the losing end and the bank would win.
Okay.
Yes. Whereas if you're going to the bank and you say to them, all right, I don't want a discounted loan. I'd rather take my 3,280 at 9%, and I will pay my interest over time. You're benefiting more, or you take your 4,000 at 10%, depending on how much money you want, but the discounted practice can be very deceptive. So, yeah. not good at all at times. All right, so that's where we will end. All right, so we have covered a lot so far, and we have about three more consumer practices to cover. And once we do that, then I should be able to post your project on chapter 7, which is going to be quite intense. As I said, I'm not going to be giving a lot of book problems for this. Most of it is going to be hands-on stuff that you actually have to do, so you can see what you're doing instead of just doing book problems. I may post a few so you can practice, but not really anything to like a whole list of problems to do and submit. But
Okay.
I'll let you guys know. All right. So have a great day, and I'll see you next class.
Since these are the problems.
Yes.
The project.
The project, yes.
This is B, because I didn't have enough room.
Oh, sure. Just label it. Once it's labeled, that's good.
Okay.
And for persons who are online, make sure you submit your project and your assignment on Blackboard. I'm going to be posting your quiz today, and you will have, I'll send an email with the details relating to the quiz. It's not a test. It's going to be open book, so you can use your notes and so forth to help you.